Still in Beta by Neil A. Hogan. Josie flicked her hair, adjusted her glasses, and peered closely at the wired gel patches on my hand.
I'm not sure that contact has been made correctly.
She peeled off one of the connections and repositioned it, then looked at the monitor.
Alright, the noise level has fallen. Better.
I sat in the chair, patiently, trying not to think about her intelligence, youth, and beauty. I was probably the same age as her father, though I had heard this new generation weren't as concerned about age differences. The grey suit she wore hugged her tight figure, and I tried not to imagine what was underneath. It might cause a problem for the experiment.
Alright,
She said, her lengths of blonde hair releasing some of her pheromones in my direction.
I think we're ready to begin.
I could feel the plastic skull cap of wires pulling on my hair. The weight wasn't entirely uncomfortable, though I knew that was about to change. In front of me, the room looked quite dull and uninteresting, just how I liked it. I didn't want any distractions from what I was about to do. Old computers, some notepaper, a few tables and chairs with items stacked haphazardly. I had pushed them out of direct line of sight so that I could focus on the control image. In the center of the room, I had assembled a simple display, an old gold clock in a glass dome with a pendulum on a pedestal, the focal point. Underneath was the machine I had built, cables stretching from me and through it to the monitor on my left. I'd combined the equipment from a MEG, an MRI, and a magnetopherometer, and had created a brain rhythm monitoring and recording system that could also manipulate my own brain waves in the way I wanted them. I planned to downscale and sell the system as an earbuds app. Well, that was the plan. I still had to prove the concept. Josie began filling in the holes in my skull cap with a long syringe of gel. I could feel the blunt syringe point scraping my scalp and depositing cold conductive droplets between my follicles. I grimaced as the metal point scraped a few too many times, and Josie leant over concerned, muttering an apology before continuing, her breast too close to me for my heartbeat. Would it show up on the monitor?
Your heart rate is a bit high. Enough sleep last night? Too much salt? Taken any nootropics?
I think I'm just really excited about the experiment. Josie nodded, her thoughts focused on lines of data winding across the screen. She lifted a simple TMS loop and positioned it on the left of my scalp, targeting my prefrontal cortex through the skull cap. My right finger twitched slightly.
Gel's in place, contact is good, noise level is still low. I'd say we're ready to begin.
Great! I was starting to get impatient. The coffee I had had that morning was probably wearing off, and my ADHD had started to kick in again. I had hired Josie from the local psychiatric research institute. She had been working on her PhD, researching how transcranial magnetic stimulation could create lasting influence on parts of the brain. Her research was fascinating, and I had been taken by her papers. Also, I've always been a sucker for brainy women. When I found out she had a body to match, I asked her out straight away. She turned me down immediately, of course, and so I hired her instead. Her work was relevant, and I needed an assistant. I had been researching the possibility of using the TMS to change the actual overall brain between different states. Delta, theta, alpha, beta, gamma. My goal was to see what the world looked like through the highest perception. There was extra information in our reality that our current senses could not perceive. But what if we could easily access a different state, activate latent abilities, see what we couldn't normally see? Of course, there were isotonic binaural beats online that could generate a slight change in some people. I wanted something stronger and longer lasting for everyone. Josie peeled off the contacts from my hand and began the second step.
Your brain is currently in the beta state, around 20 Hz. Mu waves are synchronized, so your mirror neurons are inactive. I guess you're feeling some mild ASMR. I'll lower the helmet and we'll set a new state.
I nodded, forgetting the skull cap, and wincing as the cables pulled on my hair. I'll remember to speak rather than nod next time. She began winding the helmet lower. The helmet was my own design. Hundreds of little coils of magnets aligned to induce a completely different brain state. It had worked on several mice, without causing any seizures, as long as there were pauses between the pulses. Simulations on holographic human brains also seemed to be safe. I would be the first organic human to try it. The helmet weighed a lot, and I had attached it to a pole behind my chair, using an old car window winding system. It was rough. Future versions would have electric hydraulics. Josie wound it down, lowering it over me, adjusting it so that it sat just above the sensors. Neither would disrupt the other, as only a small magnetic field was needed to induce the state, and the sensors had been calibrated to operate within that field.
Switching it on now.
She whispered.
Experiment 1.
I could feel the hum of the helmet and instantly started to lose focus. The helmet had already begun moving my state from beta to alpha, concentration to relaxation. The first experiment would drop my brainwaves to delta, the second would increase them to upper gamma.
Monitor indicates you are already at 7 Hertz in the alpha state. That was quick.
I muttered, relaxed. My heartbeat had started to slow and Josie's attractive and lithe body no longer distracted me.
Activating theta state.
Her voice said. I was vaguely aware of her finger delicately sliding the program control down. Then I felt the new state begin, as memories that I had suppressed returned. Of my youth, of the girls I had loved, of my obsession with the mind and what I could do with it to attract more of them, of the many beds I had slept in, always consensual. The joy was in the connections made and the mutual passion created. I loved the taste of someone new, the feeling of different warmths, textures, and shades of skin against my own. As I had aged, the urge for this deep connection with many different women from around the world had disappeared, but the state had brought it all flooding back, and I began to forget the importance of my project, how quickly we can be pulled back into our addictions. The room faded as I began to dream of those many experiences, struggling to stay aware of the world around me. I'm sure Josie would have said Delta, but I didn't hear her, my eyes already flicking back and forth as I succumbed to REM. And then, as my memory began to replay some of these experiences in much more detail, I forced myself to snap out of it. The last thing I wanted was to have to change my underwear.
10, 15, returning to beta rhythm,
said Josie's voice. The light magnetic field was just enough to rebalance my own, but not enough to completely override it. I still had the ability to wake up if I wanted to. I was grateful of that. She switched off the helmet while I carefully adjusted myself under it. My neck and shoulders were beginning to hurt in this position. That was interesting. I could feel the world beginning to return.
Are you ready to continue?
Yes. I was determined, though slightly groggy. What's the report?
The system worked perfectly. It can take your brain to any of the states. You'll need to get some more control volunteers to make sure it works on others, but your system is pretty generic, and you didn't design it specifically for you, so I think you've got something here.
I smiled, congratulating myself. I knew it would work. But now it was time for the harder experiment. That's great. Let's move on to the next one. Josie nodded and began changing the magnetic field to simulate the next state. She would keep increasing it to the highest cycle.
Experiment 2,
she stated. The effect was almost instantaneous. The room sharpened as I shifted to upper beta, and I could feel a slight hum in my head, as though my brain had started to work synchronistically, rather than the random firing that I usually felt. My meditations had allowed me some increased sensitivity to how my brain worked.
20, 30, gamma.
Josie said, Gamma. I had made it to the gamma level, the state that could bring humanity to a different level of consciousness, the state that was almost impossible to achieve without external help, whether it was drugs or 40 years of deep meditation. What could I do in this state? I called up books I'd read years ago. I could read the printed page. I recalled scenes from my childhood. I could remember the details of the conversations. I pulled out a walk in the park. I could smell the flowers, feel the heat, hear the buzzing insects. Amazing. I hadn't realized all my memories were retained in such a way. Holographic. Perfect. Was I seeing them in my mind, or was I connecting across space and time to those exact times and places again? It was a question I'd never thought of before. But what about the world now? I shifted my focus back to the room in front of me. The clock in the dome ticked and the pendulum swung. But now I could see how. Each click and clatter of the cogs appeared overlaid on the clock, showing me the mechanics of how it worked. Flashes of numbers appeared showing the measurements, the energy output, even the exact amplitude of the DC current pouring through the device from the battery at the back.
Hypergamma,
said Josie.
Brain continues to be stable. Slight rise in temperature, nothing dangerous.
I began feeling a pressure within my head. A mild warmth had spread across the cerebellum. Then the room seemed to shift slightly, and I could see that there was more than one room. I could see the other rooms overlaid, as though seeing different points in time, different versions of the room in parallel realities. The clock took on a surreal look, as though the dome that covered it had interlocking pieces, the glass interacting with other versions of itself across space-time. The clock also showed different times, the dial no longer hands, just a blurred black circle of merging time zones, the pendulum a bright gold arc of light. The clock blurred further, and I pulled back my focus. Things moved in front, behind, and through it. Strange images and voices came to me. Alien worlds, Spirits, but they weren't in my mind. They were in front of me, flitting back and forth. A spacecraft? A blue sun? A waterfall? I could see the differences in reality, the striations of parallel time, the other worlds overlapping our own, shifting across my field of vision in multiple ways. More details of my world became clear too. I could see all the scratches on the tables and chairs, the brush strokes of the wall paint. I could smell the old leather of a chair in the corner, the deodorant worn by a previous visitor, the lasagna eaten last week. I could feel the multiple hums of the mixture of matter in the plaster, the frequencies of the cables in the ceiling, even the pulses of Josie's own electromagnetic field bursting out of her with every heartbeat. I gasped as I realized that I had done it, that I had created a device that could allow people to see the other realities around them, that could put them into the gamma state with no drugs or years of meditation needed. I almost leapt for joy.
Oh,
Said Josie, sounding startled. Then something completely impossible happened. My brain shifted to hyper-epsilon. It took a moment to adjust. There had been a flash, and then it was as though nothing had happened. But then I realized the ghosts and overlaid worlds had disappeared, and I was back, focused in this reality again. But somehow I knew I was different. There was a deep feeling of connection to something. The universe? The feeling was almost overwhelming. I lifted one of my hands and saw that I could not only see the nerves, the pulsing of the blood as it rushed through my veins, the tiny pinpricks where sweat and oil kept my skin healthy, but I could also see my own field, little whirls of energy around each finger, greater whirls in my palm, and I could see through it. I had become quasi-physical. I looked at Josie, who was staring at me in horror.
oh my God, you're fading away.
She said, alarmed. Expound on the data detected by the device, I requested, sounding unlike myself. She blinked, then brought her attention back to her job and looked at the mess of lines on the screen.
I'm not sure what I'm reading.
I had to answer for her. Surface analysis indicates. This physical form has attained a multiple state of waves including hypergamma, lambda, and epsilon states. It is not a level this form thought was possible. Hyper-epsilon.
You should be frozen. Epsilon is a suspended animation state.
In your reality? Analyze your readings. Josie stared at her readings. The lines had increased in fluctuation, the data rushing across the monitor.
I can't analyze it. It's past epsilon. There are rhythms I haven't seen before. The system can't process it. I can't even detect your heartbeat.
Panic had entered her voice. She wasn't thinking clearly. I continued. This unit is now vibrating at 330,000 cycles per second, reaching the physical border between your reality and another.
I can't believe it,
said Josie. I breathed deeply, my throat open though I was breathing through my nose, feeling a deep oneness, a connection with the universe so fulfilling that I realized it was this that I had been searching for in those fleeting love acts. My addiction to this connection, far greater than any human orgasm could elicit. Continue. The experiment, I stated. Josie moved away, shaking her head.
It's not possible for the magnetic system to increase your level any further. It could barely get you to hypergamma. You have done it yourself.
I thought about it. That meant we could all do it. Shifting to hypergamma had given me the ability to shift higher. I would make it available to all humanity. And then I realized something else. If everyone shifted to hypergamma, then all humans would be able to simply shift higher to quasi-physical and disappear altogether, no longer tied to Earth, or even this reality. Humanity would simply vanish.
This is too much for me,
said Josie, her voice shaking.
I have no way of getting you back.
She reached for one of my hands, but hers passed straight through and touched the arm of the chair.
I don't know what to do.
I looked at the clock on the table. I could hear the cogs turn inside with a musical cadence. A lot more frequencies of sound were available to me. It was then I realized that I could see the different frequencies of the matter that made up the clock. But what amazed me at that moment was that one of the frequencies was unknown to me, like the frequency of gold, but not detectable in our reality. A kind of paragold. I was momentarily surprised to find the clock was made up of exotic elements as well. How did they get there? Are we surrounded by other elements we use all the time but simply can't perceive, purely because we are at the frequency where it isn't possible? It was then another thought occurred. Of course, I'd been doing this research to raise humanity's perceptions, to connect with alien dimensions, but I had never thought about aliens. It hadn't been my focus. But what had happened to them all? Where were they? Were we simply in a reality that didn't have them? Would this explain the Fermi paradox? I then understood where they had gone. They had already advanced to the quasi-physical state, far beyond our perceptions. But we would soon join them. We would meet all those advanced aliens within their level of reality, their level of frequency. It was at that very moment of understanding, that moment that I had that thought, as though it could not have happened until I did, that the creature appeared. Perhaps it was eons, perhaps only a moment, but I could see that Josie was facing in the direction of the creature, unmoving. A frozen snapshot of time. We were paused in a blank second, or rather she was. I had regressed beyond this universe's simple regulation. I could see the structure of reality and knew that we traveled through trillions of frozen reality snapshots every second, giving us the illusion of linear time, and that absolutely everything existed in a single now point. A bubble reality had formed around me and the creature, allowing a shifting across substrates of space/time, forming a linear understanding. I was still almost physical, as was the creature, and so a small amount of time was needed for communication. I felt that the next stage above hyper-epsilon, whatever that was, would not be physical at all, where no time existed. I was happy to remain in this state. I knew the next level would be what humanity perceived as the spirit realm. I wasn't ready for that yet. The creature spun, turned, and flickered. It was bluish-purple, shining from within, skin made of silky triangular leaf-like shapes that rotated as it turned. It pulsed, turning inside out and then outside in, shifting within itself in a way that looked like many interlocking balls swapping places. It had no discernible senses. It was a sense in itself, a hyperdimensional drone, a representation of alien life, a connection point. It turned to light and I felt it envelop me, then disappear. I looked at my quasi-physical hands. They seemed to glow brighter. Time snapped back. The shadows and overlapping realities appeared, and I could feel myself heading back to Gamma, then Beta. I knew I was returning to my average human self, and I tried to fight it, but failed. I felt the ecstasy, the elation, and deep love and joy, like 1,000 orgasms, slowly fade, and I felt like crying, like I had become detached from everything that was really me. I moved my senses back into normal reality, but things were still fuzzy. Had I dreamed the creature?
What was that?
Asked Josie. So, it had been real. You could perceive it? I said, mumbling.
I think being near you enabled me to. Your frequency influenced mine. I saw it only for a moment.
An alien drone sent to check on me, I expect? I said.
Aliens?
Asked Josie, accusingly.
Is that the real reason? You wanted to contact aliens?
No, it really never crossed my mind. I've only been focused on increasing humanity's ability. Now I must consider it. I really don't know what to do next. Josie relaxed slightly.
You almost disappeared. You were vibrating so fast you almost became invisible.
Yes, fascinating. Then I looked at her, somehow knowing she would disapprove. I have a new experiment. Josie opened her mouth and closed it.
I thought you'd want to take a break, toilet, eat, you know.
I want to see if that drone has further information for us. What if we could bring it here? And we're already set up. Why stop now? Josie's shoulders slumped, and she turned back to the monitor. Was she acting more than professional? Did she really care what happened to me?
Right.
She said, looking at the screen.
The helmet is still working, but you're back to beta. It looks like your brain is not being affected by the magnets anymore.
It took me a moment to process this. The magnets weren't working. After just one heightened experience? Could there be a limit? I suddenly felt sick, as though I'd been hit in the stomach. I guess I was coming down from the elation, addicted already. I took a breath and thought again. Could you flick the slider through the states and see if I get any response at all? Is the helmet still working?
The helmet is generating the beginnings of a gamma field, but your brain is still in beta. I can't tell you any more than that.
I looked at my hands. The energy whirls had gone, my eyesight had blurred again, and I could barely make out the hairs, spots, and veins on my hands, let alone any pores. I looked down despondently. You'd better release me from this then. We'll run the experiment again tomorrow. Hopefully some delta will help repair any damage. Josie looked relieved and wound up the helmet. She then carefully peeled off the skull cap along with a couple of the wired gel patches on my forehead and under my left eye. I headed to the showers to wash my hair. Josie had gone home after we had planned the next day's test and finalized our reports. I headed back to my on-campus unit to get some sleep, especially as my head had begun to throb. I increased my water intake and lay down for a while when I got home, thinking of the images I had seen. I couldn't quite remember much. It was as though, at this level, my brain couldn't even conceive of what I had seen, and so it couldn't store the memories of it. Or perhaps I wasn't even in my body to begin with, and those thoughts were all in my spirit form, stored forever in an alien dimension. As I hit the pillow, I fell straight into a deep delta state. In my dream state, I began to remember something about epsilon. It existed at both extremes of the brain states, above gamma and below delta, and having done it once, I didn't need a machine to help me do it again. Within moments, I was face to face with the blue hyperdimensional drone again.
Much better,
the drone said.
You really shouldn't try and control it.
Even though the joy and ecstasy were there, I felt fear. Was I fading away again? Would I be able to come back? What do you want? I asked.
Only to show you love,
said the drone.
What other reason could there be?
I couldn't understand this. I needed a logical reason.
When you raise all human states to hyper-epsilon,
the drone continued,
they will be able to feel the love of not only us, but of the billions of other races already here.
Is this why we can't see you? We're not of your frequency? The being seemed to laugh, but I couldn't understand the joke.
You are not that negative,
it said.
Some of you do see us in your dreams, but they are usually too afraid to remember. But we are always here, guiding you to your destiny, sending love.
Yes, I said, trying to understand. But sending love doesn't give me a reason. You have to have a reason for wanting to do it, surely. The drone spun and turned, not answering. Was it something I had to work out? Then it vanished. I shifted back into beta state and woke up with an even greater headache. Somehow the connection had become permanent. I didn't need the machine. Having felt it once, I now had the ability to reach that frequency again, simply by remembering. I would only need the machine if I forgot. I took some paracetamol and fell into a deep, regenerating sleep.
Your head looks bigger, swollen,
said Josie.
I'm not sure that.
I went over to a mirror and looked. Yes, everything was slightly bigger, and my eyes seemed darker. Was I evolving that quickly? Or had I shifted to a reality where my upgraded brain would be more suited? I was already thinking multidimensionally. Perhaps I had been permanently changed. Yes, you're right, I said, rubbing my chin. Let's see what changes have happened to my brain in the past few hours. Hook me up. Josie was slightly more nervous this time. She dropped the gel syringe twice and used a higher test stimulation that caused my finger to cramp up. I have already agreed to all risks, including death, I said.
But I really wasn't expecting aliens,
said Josie, her voice wavering slightly. I told her about the dream I had, emphasizing the idea that the alien wanted to bring love. She seemed to calm a little after that. I hadn't realized she suffered from alienophobia. She squeezed the last droplet of gel into the final hole, lowered the helmet, and we were ready to begin. What are my readings?
Readings suggest your brain is not really working at its best. I'm getting the sort of readings I might get after scanning someone with schizophrenia, allowing for your ADHD.
Parts of my brain firing when they shouldn't? I asked. I could feel images begin to form at the corners of my mind, occasionally flitting past my eyes. I ignored them. I knew parts of my brain were accessing different states at different times.
Something like that. Are you sure you want to proceed?
Absolutely. Yesterday's test was a complete success. This time we follow the same steps, but perhaps at a lower magnitude. I want to see if it is possible to reduce the power.
We're assuming you'll be able to shift. You couldn't do it after your first attempt yesterday.
I sighed. It was true. I'd forgotten already because of the dream, as I no longer needed the machine to reach the state. But the machine was my way to make money. If it didn't work on me again, I wouldn't be able to sell the software. Let's hope for the best, I said. The clock continued to tick in the center of the room in front of me, and the pendulum swung. I tried to imagine the paragold that was part of the frame, but it eluded me. I guess it was within it, not stuck on the outside. Part of the mixture.
Experiment 2. Second day,
she said, activating the field.
At this magnetic resonance rate, the machine will reach its limit on the edge of hypergamma.
I stared at the clock. It sat there like any clock would, not showing alternate realities, ticking slowly, or doing anything else remotely interesting. After a few moments I frowned. I could tell it wasn't working. Okay, cancel that experiment, I said. Save the results and start a new one. Increase the magnetic resonance field by a factor of 2, normal plus 1.
I'm not sure that would be wise. That can cause all sorts of seizures.
Only if it pulses faster. I'm just increasing the power of the same pulse format. Josie reluctantly changed the settings.
The system is now broadcasting gamma waves with extra power.
I could feel my brain begin to react to the field. Finally,
It's working!
she said, excited.
Perhaps you built up some resistance.
Yes, I muttered. Higher rates needed each time. Like most things for humans. I saw the room change, the clock blur. It was now filled with images of other beings, overlapping worlds and an infinite number of landscapes. The clock was now full of pyramids of reflections of itself through higher dimensions.
Hypergamma,
Said Josie. I looked for the alien, and it appeared. I guess hyper-epsilon level wasn't really needed this time, or perhaps I only needed to access the edge of it. Hello again, I said. I have some questions. The purple ball showed its diamond insides to me, spinning and reforming through the higher dimensions.
I have answers.
It sent. I would like to know what will happen when we all raise our abilities to hyper-epsilon level.
The human race will be a new race, filled with love and joy, and able to join the Galactic Federation and fight as brothers and sisters in our beautiful dimensional wars.
I blinked in surprise. I'm sorry? A feeling of dread began to override the feeling of love.
8 billion people. It will be glorious. Of course, we would want you to help. Our wars against consciousnesses in other dimensions keep the balance in the multiverse. We wouldn't want it taken over by negative beings.
The creature hummed.
The balance must be kept close to the neutral point through multiple realities.
I always thought a higher state of consciousness would mean a higher level of love, understanding and acceptance.
Of course, as you raise your frequency, you attract more positivity and more negativity to yourself as you are much stronger and can deal with more. The higher your level, the more you can detect and receive. We have been waiting for you to develop this technology. An entire dimension has been waiting for you. When you release it, humanity can join us in our dimension wars with love.
The creature shifted to a deeper purple and waited for my response. This wasn't what I had in mind at all. I didn't want the human race pulled into a war. I didn't want humans seeing even more negativity. There was enough in this world already. I took several breaths. This changed everything. I took some more breaths.
I think you're about to hyperventilate.
Said Josie distantly. I held my breath. I had to end the experiment, cancel my life's work. What will happen if I don't? I said to the creature.
You are not the first. Your race tried this 14,000 years ago when Earth was called Atlantis. As many tried to raise their frequency to join our war, many more tried to stop them. The force of the warping of space-time that resulted attracted a comet to your planet. For 20 of your years, cometary matter rained down across your world, destroying all your advanced cities, causing a worldwide flood. You know the rest.
I will simply shut it down here and delete the research. No one else will do it.
Then you will be responsible for exiling your race from the higher dimensions. All other races fight in the dimension war. You will never meet them. The beta state will exile you and your kind again.
Not one for ever being pressured into doing what someone else wanted, especially in the way that this drone was informing me, I laughed. Perhaps another 14,000 years.
Your race is progressing fast, human. Within 100 of your linear years, multiple realities of humanity will naturally evolve into the hyper-epsilon state and be part of the Great War. Some have already evolved. It is only a matter of time.
With that, the creature faded away. Humanity had arguably been around for 2 million years. Yet we should have reached the hyper-epsilon state millennia ago. It's possible we have reached this state many times through experimentation, discovered that we would need to be part of a dimension war, and retreated to our self-imposed quarantine, our jail, our regulated beta state, a secondary state that could never be part of the rest of the universe. As the world returned to normal for the last time, I looked at Josie and saw her expression.
Did you save us or jail us?
There was a surprised tone in her voice. She'd heard the entire conversation without any need for the device. How was that possible? Could she simply tap into the hypergamma state without even realizing it? Perhaps that was why she had become interested in this field of research. She had already evolved. I knew then that my app had already failed. The younger generation didn't need it. They were already ready to take themselves to hypergamma. Save the human race for another 100 years or so, I said, disappointed. People can go about their lives for a bit longer before we have to join the Dimension Wars. I sighed. I'm sorry, Josie, but I've got to cancel the program for humanity. I remained in the chair while Josie raised the helmet and peeled off the sensors. I stared at the haphazard room, feeling numb. Humanity had, long ago, made a conscious decision to cut itself off from the rest of the universe, stuck in one dimension, one level of reality. Like being in a simple computer program, a beta version of what we were really capable of. And I had saved them inside it, again. I had to find a new mission, something to take my mind off things. Perhaps it was time to settle down, raise a family. Then Josie kissed my cheek and smiled at me for the first time.
All right, now that you're cancelling the program and no longer my boss, how about that date you've been wanting?
I opened my mouth, then closed it again. Suddenly, things were looking up. Awesome!